On this episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, we dig into the Lotus Elise and try and figure out why it decided to lose all its gear oil. Alright guys, so I got the Lotus Elise here. Obviously, if you saw my previous video, you'll know that I was driving it recently, pulled over, parked the car, and when I got out of the car, there was gear oil dripping all over the ground, which is never good. You definitely want to keep gear oil in your transmission. Today is a day that we dig into it, so I'm a little nervous. I had it flatbedded home, and I'm a little nervous because I don't know if it's going to be something like the drain plug came loose or there's a hole in the transmission somehow. I have no idea, but we're going to dig into it today, and why don't you follow along? As you can see, under the car is completely flat, and they do that for aerodynamic reasons. We're going to have to remove this panel, and on the Lotus there are 3 on each side, left side, right side, and then there's also 5, if you can see all the way down there in the back, and then 2 larger bolts in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and start removing these guys. We're under the car now, and the under tray has been removed. Drain plug is obviously intact. That was the first thing I checked. I was thinking perhaps that came loose or something like that. So then I started looking around, and then if you look here, the seal where the axle meets the transmission is definitely wet, and it turns out that's gear oil, and I'm pretty sure it's the source of my problem. The weird part is, typically with seals like this, they would leak gradually. And I mean, this thing was puking gear oil all over the place. So I was kind of wondering what's going on. So I started looking around a little bit more. If you look over here, I did not remove these bolts, but I don't know if you can see it, but this is a carrier bearing, and there are supposed to be 2 bolts going through this that connect the carrier bearing to the axle, and they are mysteriously missing. So I'm pretty sure that's the source of my problem. I'm gonna run to the hardware store, hopefully find a bolt for these, and then bolt it up and put some transmission fluid in and see what happens. All right, so fortunately Home Depot had the bolts I needed, and I'm also going to Loctite these because of the fact that they've already come out, so I do not want them to come out. So I'm gonna Loctite them as well. Let's throw these in. All right, got the Loctite on the bolts. Just gonna snug these down, and hopefully they don't come out. And now I'll just get the torque wrench out and make sure they are at factory spec. Now that I've done what I think is fix the leak, I'm gonna clean off this seal, and now I'm going to drain the transmission, because I figure while I'm down here, I'm probably just going to change the transmission fluid and the oil. This is a 24mm socket. Oh, there we go. Now let's get our drain plan. And I'm not expecting much fluid to come out of here because this was leaking overnight. Ooh, yes. Tasty gear oil. Oh, there was a fair amount in there. Now, fortunately, I did have some foresight when this happened. I didn't know exactly what the problem was, but I did know that because I lost all that transmission fluid, or sorry, gear oil, I was gonna need more. Some nice Redline MT90. I also bought this filler. It's a fluid quart pump, as they call it. It was like $5, but idea being here that because I can't really get to the fill hole easily with just these bottles, I'm going to use this pump to pump up the fluid into the fill hole. So let's go do that now. Damn it. Easy open seal my ass. I got the drain plug back on and snugged up, and now the way you
fill manual transmission fluids is that they have a fill hole and a drain hole. So we obviously drained all the fluid from the drain hole. Now we have to take off this, which is the fill hole. And what we'll do is take this off, and then we'll pump fluid in here until it starts coming out. That's how you know you've filled it up enough. So this didn't fit completely ideal, but what do you want for $5? So let's get this hose up here and in this hole and get to pumping. So this pump is pretty neat and all, works just fine, but it does take frickin' ages. Okay, so put probably 2.5 quarts in, give or take, and as you can see, it's starting to drip out, so that means that we are full. So I'm going to take this stuff out, put the drain plug back in, and then hope to God that I have fixed the issue and I didn't just waste $50 worth of gear oil in this thing.
So it's the next day, and I tidied everything up late last night and couldn't really take the car for a drive. Spent the morning cleaning the garage, and as you can see, the Lotus is no longer in there. That's because it's out here, and I just took it for a drive, and I wanted to see if it was gonna drip any more gear oil, and knock on wood, so far there's nothing on the ground. So super stoked about that. I think we were able to fix it pretty cheaply and easily. But appreciate you guys watching and following along. Be on the lookout for a review of this car coming very soon. Thanks for watching, guys.